Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this new podcast. This is Twilight Tales. Not that this will be released at midnight, but it sounded like a nice name. I am your host, Dinsmore, and here we will be reading bedtime stories for ages young and old, both original and stories that are well known. This is the first episode in a new series called Twilight Tales. But first, I want you to take a deep breath. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Is everyone sitting comfortably? Is everyone lying down? I wonder. Tonight, I will be reading you a tale from Harry Potter's Beedle the Bard. I hope you're sitting comfortably. There once were 3 brothers who were travelling along a lonely, winding road at twilight. In time, the brothers reached a river too deep to wade through and too dangerous to swim across. However, these brothers were learned in the magical arts, and so they simply waved their wands and made a bridge appear across the treacherous water. They were halfway across it when they found their path blocked by a hooded figure. And Death spoke to them. He was angry that he had been cheated out of 3 new victims, for travellers are usually drowned in the river. But Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the 3 brothers upon their magic, and said that each had earned a prize for having been clever enough to evade him. So the eldest brother, who was a combative man, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, a wand that must always win duels for its owner, a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered death. So Death crossed to an elder tree on the banks of the river, fashioned a wand from a branch that hung there, and gave it to the eldest brother. Then the second brother, who was an arrogant man, decided he wanted to humiliate Death even further, and asked for the power to recall others from death. So Death picked up a stone from the river bank and gave it to the second brother and told him that the stone would have the power to bring back the dead. And then Death asked the third brother, the youngest brother, what he would like. The youngest brother was the humblest and also the wisest of the brothers, and he did not trust Death. So he asked for something that would enable him to go forth from that place without being followed by Death. And Death most unwillingly handed over his own cloak of invisibility. Then Death stood aside and allowed the 3 brothers to continue on their way, and they did so, talking with wonder of the adventure they had had, and admiring Death's gifts. In due course the brothers separated, each for his own destination. The first brother travelled on for a week or more, and reaching a distant village, he sought out a fellow wizard with whom he had a quarrel. Naturally, with the elder wand as his weapon, he could not fail to win the duel that followed. Leaving his enemy dead upon the floor, the oldest brother proceeded to an inn, where he boasted loudly of the powerful wand he had snatched from Death himself, and how it made him invincible. That very night another wizard crept upon the eldest brother as he lay, wine-sodden, upon his bed. the thief took the wand and, for good measure, slit the older brother's throat. And so Death took the first brother for his own. Meanwhile, the second brother journeyed to his own home, where he lived alone. Here he took out the stone that had the power to recall the dead, and turned it thrice in his hand. To his amazement and his delight, the figure of the girl he had once hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared at once before him. Yet she was silent and cold, separated from him as though by a veil. Though she had returned to the mortal world, she did not truly belong there, and suffered. Finally, the second brother, driven mad with hopeless longing, killed himself, so as truly to join her. And so Death took the second brother for his own. But though Death searched for the third brother for many years, he was never able to actually find him. It was only when he had attained a great age that the youngest brother finally took the cloak of invisibility off and gave it to his son. And then he greeted Death as an old friend and went with him gladly, and equals, they departed this life. I hope you enjoyed that story, The Tale of the Three Brothers, by J.K. Rowling. You see, this story had a profound impression on me as a child. I heard it first from the Potter movies, and it soon became a tale I requested more often than any other bedtime. This frequently led to arguments with my younger brother, Will, whose favourite story was Grumble the Grubbly Goat. Did I say coat? Goat. The animal. The moral of the tale of the three brothers could not be any more clearer. Human efforts to evade or overcome death are always doomed to disappointment. The third brother in the story, the humblest and wisest, is the only one who understands that. Having narrowly escaped death once, the best he can hope for is to postpone their next meeting for as long as possible. This youngest brother knows that the taunting death by engaging in violence like the first brother, or meddling in the shadowy art of necromancy like the second brother, means he'd be pitting himself against an enemy he cannot lose. Oh, you cannot lose. I quite like that story. I'll read a couple more from this book at some point. Tales of Beedle the Bard by J.K. Rowling. Yeah, I'll read a couple more at some point. But this show will have multiple guests, and those guests will be reading their own stories. Episode 2, the one after this, will be read by my lovely girlfriend, Isabella Gentile, and she'll be reading an Italian version of Pinocchio. And when I say that, I mean Pinocchio, but in Italian. So if you're Italian and you're listening to this, enjoy. These episodes will be released weekly on Sundays. I hope you enjoy them. We have plenty of guests who will join us. A lot of these stories will be stories already known to us, short stories, and they can sometimes be original stories written by writers I know, whether it's me or Peter or Reese or whoever. But for now, as we get to the 10-minute mark, I will say goodnight, sweet dreams, and sleep well. I shall see you next week, my friends. Stay safe and comfy. Sweet dreams.